What is up, guys? It is Historian 321 coming back at you with a video on the Crusades. This event followed the Magna Carta many years later, and there are a lot of components to it. So I'm going to throw some highlights and some main facts at you. So, to start things off, the Crusades were a series of events started by Christians against Muslims to regain the Holy Land known as Palestine. Now, they wanted this land because inside Palestine there was Jerusalem, which was the holy city of three religions: Jerusalem, Christianity, and Muslims. So they really wanted this land for Jerusalem. So in the First Crusade, the Seljuk Turks were threatening the Eastern Orthodox Byzantine. Now, Eastern Orthodox Byzantine was actually half of Byzantine because they didn't really like the Western side, but since they were under a big threat, they went to the West because, after all, the Byzantines were one united, and they asked for help. The Pope in the Western Byzantine agreed, and they went to battle together. All people fighting were known as the Knights of Christ. And yes, in this First Crusade, every social level could leave their house and go fight. Before, peasants and serfs could not leave. They had to stay on their manor and work. They didn't really see the outside world, but now they liked this. Even though they were fighting, they liked this because they got to leave and see the outside world. This First Crusade went from 1096 to 1099, and it was won by the Christians, and it was the only crusade that the Christians actually won. I personally do not think they would have won if the Pope did not agree to help the east side of Byzantine, because with the help of the Western, they got a lot more troops, and they could fight, and they defeated the Turks to regain the Holy Land, Palestine. Alright, so resulting of the First Crusade, trade came back into effect, and this was good because now, instead of Italian ships just carrying troops and army and military stuff, they were carrying trade, manufactured stuff, all that good stuff that people traded. It was great. Trade was coming back, the Christians had their land, the Holy Land, but then the Muslims wanted their land back. And by 1146, they had their forces reunited, and they were ready to fight. So the Muslims, they started getting back Jerusalem. They got part of it, not all of it yet. So the Pope was like, okay, we're kind of threatened right now, so we need to call for a second crusade. So French and German forces united with them, and they marched into the Holy Land to try to regain it, but both French and German, they marched in separately, and they both got defeated. Big fail. Big fail. So yes, you can assume that the Muslims won the Second Crusade, and they would continue doing this, obviously. Can you hear the Rihanna playing in the background? So the Muslims obviously did not want to lose this land again to the Christian Crusaders. Well, not again. They didn't want to lose it like they did in the First Crusade. So they now had a new leader, Saladin, and he had control over all the Muslims, and so they were ready to fight. They wanted to keep their land, and the new Pope of the Byzantines, Gregory, he was like making up excuses. He was like, we lost because it was like a punishment for our sins that we committed, so the Muslims got the victory. So on the Christian side, Richard and King Philip team up, and they go into battle to try to take down Saladin and his troops. So military leader Fred Barbarossa actually drowned, so this kind of, without a leader, the army can't fight, so the army just marched back home, kind of ending. There was minimal fighting in the Third Crusade. It's kind of a big fail. So obviously, since the Christians didn't really get anything accomplished, Jerusalem still belonged to the Muslims, you know. Alright, so the Fourth Crusade, which lasted from 1202 to 1204, 2 years, it was originally planned by Pope Innocent to go capture Jerusalem, get the Holy Land back again, but instead, in April of 1204, Pope Innocent in the West decided to just go and conquer Constantinople in the East, and that was one of the final acts of the Great Schism, and yeah, that was the end. There really was no Fourth Crusade to get back the Holy Land. That was the Fourth Crusade, conquering Constantinople in 1204 of April. Bam. So, The monarchs, they had a positive outcome because of the Crusades, because now there were less nobles, and this meant that there was more power for the kings to have rather than being spread around the nobles. So this was bad for the nobles because they were all dying in war, and if they wanted to go fight in war, they had to sell all their land. So like Mr. Ponticelli said, if you don't have a race car and you're a race car driver, what are you? Like, what's your purpose? There was no purpose for the nobles anymore. They were just some average knights without their land. They had money at least, but they were dying. Alright, so during the Crusades, the crossbow was invented. Pew pew. It was an easier way. It was like a crossbow. No, that's what it is. It was like a bow, right? But except it was, with the click of a gun, it would shoot a bolt, which was like a short, heavy arrow. And knights did not need a lot of skill for this, so the value of one knight decreased. Knights didn't have much importance anymore. They could get any random guy. Easy to train, you know. This was fabulous for the peasants and serfs. They got to get out of their manor to go fight, go see the outside world, and who cares if they were dying? They didn't care because they were knights of Christ, and they were going to die, and if they died, they were going to heaven, according to Pope. So guys, I hope you enjoyed, but let's review. So the whole goal of the Crusades was for the Christians to get the Holy Land, and for the Muslims to also get the Holy Land. But this all failed for the Christians, except for the First Crusade. So after the Crusades, the Muslims still had control. The Christians were a big, fat fail. But however, in Europe, lots of changes were made because of the Crusades, even though they lost. We talked about the crossbow, but military also learned how to use gunpowder. Cultural diffusion. So Crusaders came in and out of the Holy Land, and trade, products, goods from other cultures were shared because of this. This was spread all around Europe, and as a result, Italian ships that used to bring back armies now came back with boatloads of food, anything, goods, all the new cultural diffusion stuff that Europeans brought home and talked about with their families. So some political changes, since lords were selling their lands and knights were selling their lands. If you think about that in like a math equation. So if there's no land, there's no power, and if there's no power, there's no feudalism. And that goes to the whole point of my videos, this whole series of videos this week. No power, no feudalism, there's no feudalism. Decline of feudalism. With fewer knights and lords and monarchs and stuff, peasants had more power, and serfs. Hope you guys enjoyed learning about the Crusades with me, the highlights and everything, and the political changes, the military changes, everything. Please don't forget to like, subscribe below, and comment, and be nice, no bad words, because bad words hurt people's feelings, and in my next video, I'm going to teach you how to disappear.